Good morning. Welcome back to Professional Insights, brought to you in part by the National Referral Network, where we have conversations with professionals to help elevate all conversations that you, the viewer, should be having with the professionals that you work with. And this morning, I'm excited to have Hal Brown, the founder of Clarity Family Office, with us this morning. And we're going to talk about the importance of building your financial team and just the importance of building it. Good morning, Hal. Appreciate you being here.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
Doing fantastic. Hal, real quick, tell us really what Clarity Family Office is, because I think that's going to put some context into some of the questions that I'm going to be asking you. So, what is Clarity Family Office?
Yeah, we're a multi-family office, and we focus as the for the client themselves, the advocate. Sometimes people call it the quarterback of the planning scenario for the client. That's where we focus. We have CPAs, we have a lot of people in our company, but our focus is the advocate for the client, understanding their wants, all of their dynamics, and then working with their whole advisor team, going out and building what they want us to do for them.
Okay, so what is the importance of that? Now, obviously, you and I spoke last week, but what is the importance of having a team that's working together to push some of those initiatives that you just talked about?
Well, because everybody understands at the very high level entrepreneurs, no one expects one person to have all the answers,
Yeah.
but there is an expectation that there's going to be someone that can help them get done what they need to get done. And that's really our role. And it's vitally important that you have to be able to work with a team that the client already has in place. Sometimes, sometimes they may have outgrown some of their team members. That's a different question. But we really try to focus on the team that's in place, bring the opportunities to the table based on what the client wants, and then build those out for the client.
So you're not looking to, and this is for any professional working with clients, right? The idea is not to replace the people they're working with, but to give them the tools to work better together.
Absolutely. That's
Okay.
exactly what it is. And one of the things that's important there is super entrepreneurial clients, we call them everpreneur,
Okay.
is kind of our vision for that. Those clients, their advisory teams, if you look at, and this is not to say anything bad about their advisory teams, but typically most CPAs, most law firms, most investment management firms, most large banks that have private client services, there's not a lot of entrepreneurial people in those roles. It's not typical. In a super entrepreneurial client, what's happening is they're going through their whole life with this advisor team and they're never speaking the same language. And that's really our role is we're going to speak the client's language. We're going to understand from their perspective what they want to get done. And then we're going to work with their team that's very good at their specific roles and what they can do for the client. And we're going to use all those capabilities to get done for the client what the client wants to get done.
Now, how I on this on this show, on these conversations, I tend to really lean into CPAs because you mentioned that just a second ago. But how does a business owner, right? They've got a lot of hats. They're moving forward. They've got a lot of things that they've got to do. How do they even begin to identify that their CPA or their business attorney does not have the same mindset that they have?
I, I, I think that's pretty easy. We've never had a client, never talked to a prospective person that would be a client that thought that they were aligned from how they think of business with their professional advisors. They
So
all
what does that
real
look like? But what does that look like, Hal? So when you have that conversation, like kind of describe what I'm a business owner. I tell you that I just don't see that alignment. What are some of the things that they tell you that they express to you that they're not in alignment with their current team?
the two biggest things, communication.
Okay.
So communicating, and part of that is the advisor team thinks they're communicating. The client super entrepreneurial client doesn't think they're communicating because they're not speaking the same language, right? They're just whistling by each other. The other piece is ideas and proactivity, being
Uh,
proactive with ideas. And the thing that usually brings us to that point, and every one of our clients and everyone we've ever talked to says the same thing. They get patted on the back at the end of the year, or maybe they had a big, a big deal happened, an equity deal, they went public, whatever's happening at this point. And their advisor team basically taps them on the shoulder at the end of the year and said, "Hey, you had a great year. Look at what we did for you. Paying tax, it could be worse. You could have no money and not pay tax at all." That's a typical thread. And that is something that all of our clients are irked by, right? That
yep.
makes them upset. And there were no proactive ideas, nobody helping them the planning, no one understanding their point of view. And it's not the advisory group's fault necessarily. They're good at what they do. The rest of their attorneys, their CPAs, but they're pretty much not proactive on the planning side. They're there to react to client situations typically.
So how this so I'm gonna push back on you here because I do think it's the fault of the advisory team. And partly because one, in my opinion, like you mentioned, right? They at the end of the year, they pat you on the back. Most CPAs that we talk to or that I see post on social media, they're happy historians. They themselves are not business owners in the sense that they're not trying to improve their own business. There's just status quo. And then not to pick on financial advisors because we are financial advisors, but I've always talked to clients, especially business owners, and I expressed to them most financial advisors took a test. They've never done anything in their life in terms of running a business, managing a business, balance sheets, cash flow statements. They've never even seen any of that. So how could they possibly advise you as a business owner? So am I being a little harsh here, or is that kind of the environment that we live in?
No, I think you're being a little harsh. I'm not going to take all responsibility out of their hands,
Okay.
right? I mean, everybody's smart enough to know if they do a deep dive in what they're good at and what they're not good at. And I think what happens is human nature silos us,
Okay.
right? That's just human nature to be siloed. And eventually you just get siloed into what you're doing. And it's very easy for human nature for us to do the same things over and over again. And if it's not something we've done before or we currently do with clients, it's not something that we're easily going to do. But I would say this, that all of our great relationships on the CPA front are CPAs with some of those same uh, issues, right?
Yep.
And we've been able to build very good relationships because we talk to them about this specific scenario and that these types of clients need entrepreneurial thinking in everything they do. And that's what we're going to do for them. We're going to work with you. We're going to understand where you're coming from with the client, but we're going to bring everybody to the table and we're going to build this out. So, I mean, the thing is yes, you're right in some ways, but I think it's a little harsh. And I think it goes back to also, I think sometimes not you, but some people in the financial advisory field start looking at uh, CPAs and attorneys as, you know, impediments to finishing out deals that they think are best for the client. And then CPAs and attorneys look at the financial advisory side of the equation sometimes as they're looking at selling something with my client and they're not understanding the big picture. And
Oh,
I
we
think
get we get that a lot.
I think everybody's right there from their own perspectives. And that's why entrepreneurial people working with an entrepreneurial group of advisors, even if their advisor team is not entrepreneurial, it can work very well. And that's where we find success in our model. And we're not financial advisors in any real sense. So we don't structure our business on assets under management or anything like that. So we don't we don't have some of those same, when we're talking to a CPA firm, they're not looking at us that way, right?
Yep.
So I think it's a little easier for us to get into those conversations.
Now you have certain criteria, and we can't dive into that in this call, but you work with a certain level of people. For those people that are just starting out, or they're a couple years into their business, and how they're trying to build a team, how do they identify this team or the specific needs that they have to even start to build their own team to get this thing moving in the right direction?
I think the best way to look at it is what's your revenue model, right?
Oh,
How do you structure your revenue? And what types of clients do you bring value to, or you want to bring value to? Sometimes people are stuck in what they can bring value to clients at and what they would like to bring value to clients at,
gotcha.
right? But I think those are the important things. And when you know that, then you just dig down and dive down on where those professional advisors that have those clients, where they are and what they look like. And that's, for us, it's M&A attorneys, CPAs that have a big practice on M&A, mergers and acquisitions. That's kind of our vision. Large banking institutions that have private client services that deal in that a lot. That's usually our go-to when we're looking at developing new relationships.
That's great. And so as you as you have these conversations, what do you see are some of the common mistakes that business owners make when they have built their team? I mean, are there holes?
I
Do you see
yeah,
consistent holes in that team?
I see consistently that there's really not that I think 70% of the times they don't have a complete team,
Gotcha.
right? So I think that's an important piece. But the rest of it is there's nobody quarterbacking. It's left to the client to quarterback, right? And if the client's left the quarterback and they're an everpreneur client, it's never going to happen. That's going to be the low every day. Quarterbacking their team is going to be the lowest thing on their to-do list,
Yeah.
right? It is. Now we could say, you'd be much better off. It's not true, all of those things, but we have to give that client a reason to make that important enough to bring in a group like ours or yours to be that quarterback.
And if they can't see, right, because there's, and I think this is one of the challenges, obviously, I mean, it's not one of the challenges, it's one of the biggest challenges that business owners face is this cash flow and not understanding their cash flow. And so how do you describe, or how do you kind of get over that hump with a business owner on a cost benefit side of things, that investing in this a professional team is the right direction?
I think some of it depends on where you're coming at it for the client. Our focus up front with clients is capital gains and active income tax mitigation,
Okay.
right? So the thing that's most important to everybody we've talked to is capital, right? And all of our clients can make money. What happens is the biggest, you know, funnel item that takes money out of their pocket is not bad returns, not lower rates of return, not expenses on investments they make. It's tax loss,
Gotcha.
right? And that's the same on uh, their companies, right? On their operating companies. They're bringing in $6 million a year net of tax, though it may be $3 million, right? That's a huge flow of capital. So our vision is to bring capital, loss to income and capital gains tax back to the client in an environment protected from creditors, outside the taxable estate, controllable and usable by the client and their family. That's our value proposition. And we hammer that value proposition home with our clients, and we can easily show that value proposition. I think that's the important thing. Find your value proposition for the client
Yeah.
and have an easy, understandable way for that client to see the value proposition.
Now, with that value proposition, how kind of describe what the long-term benefit. Now, you and I know this answer, but I want to be very clear, because when we talk about taxation, which is, one or the top eroding factor of any money, right? Inflation and taxation. But if you're able to reinvest that money, how do you talk to a client about that long, right? Because they can't see past their arm, right? They're so busy. They've got so many things going on. And then you go talk to them about, hey, this long-term exit strategy, 15, 20 years down the road, and they can't think past today. So,
Well, with that client, if we have that long of a runway on an exit,
yep.
we'll focus on current income tax and capital gains tax.
Uh-oh.
Companies at $3 million a year, right?
Yep.
And then they're going to be taxed at 50% on that net if they're in California, right? Probably a little bit over. At that point, if we could reduce that significantly, and we could save 30 to 50% of that tax and bring those dollars back to them, that's a real definable, quantifiable
Yep.
benefit, that they now have capital in the hand that they can redeploy. And we're not structuring it inside of typically a client, when they hear tax savings, they think of, now it's in an environment that I can't use it, right?
Yep.
It's in a 401k plan. It's in some type of plan that I can't use it and I can't get my rate of return on it. And in our case, that's not what we do, right? We make sure that they have use of those dollars.
Perfect. Well, Hal, I know that we could continue this conversation. There's lots of bits and pieces. Would love to have you come back. We can get that scheduled, but there's things that we can talk about that I want to expand on. But for now, I want to thank you for your time. I know you're extremely busy. If you have any questions, please leave the comments below. I'm happy to kind of funnel those through, get Hal to answer those. But other than that, the link is for Hal's website is in the description below. Please let us know how we can help. Hal, thank you so much for your time. I certainly appreciate it.